I started going with them, and we would move drugs from Mexico into the U.S. over the border with 150 pounds of marijuana in the gas tank and tires. It was either him or me, and it was me. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. In jail, you gotta be careful because I could have not woke up, and that's just the way it is, but I did.
Hello everyone, today we have here a second video with my friend. If you guys saw the previous episode, you will really like this one because the story gets even crazier. We are not here today for glorifying some certain things. We are just gonna talk straight about reality, about a personal experience of a guy who went through some certain things that I hope none of you will ever go through. But it's important so people know about it, especially if we have someone who is willing to talk about it. So thank you very much for coming, doing this. In previous episode, we covered the way how you got in United States, and we also covered your first years of living here. Can you continue from there?
In high school, I was an athlete. I used to run track, play basketball, football, and I did pretty good. Our JV team in high school, we won our district championship. We went 10-0. I was a starting point guard. You know, you think you're real cool in high school, and I got a girlfriend, and things were pretty cool. Out of high school, my plan was to go to college. I wanted to be a physical therapist. I really liked biology, and that was kind of my goal. My girlfriend ended up getting pregnant, so plans changed. You know, I stopped playing basketball and sports, and I joined the U.S. Army, the Army Reserves, to kind of for financial support and to kind of, you know, my future family, because we were gonna have a family. She ended up having a miscarriage. We lost the kid. She was 5 months pregnant. She got pregnant again, maybe a year later, not too long after that, and she ended up having a miscarriage a second time, also at 5 months. During that time, we didn't know why it happened, you know. We were very sad. We didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with it. I was 18, 19 years old. That's a very heavy thing to deal with. I became depressed. You know, I was on medication. We kind of fell apart. You know, she blamed me, I blamed her. We were kids, we were young, we didn't know. I was going through a lot of personal problems in my house as well. My parents were getting divorced. I had just finished high school, but I barely finished high school. I had moved a couple of times. I was trying to go back to my original high school. They didn't want to let me back in, so I almost didn't graduate there. It was a very confusing time. And not to mention, then I had just finished high school, and now life is changing, you know. Now what are you gonna do? Now you're on your own, and you're trying to make your way, you're trying to figure out what you're gonna do. And at the same time, around that time, I ended up meeting my biological father. Left my mother when we were 4. All of that came together around the same year, which is
That's crazy.
Those are all heavy things to deal with.
Yeah.
Around the same time. My way to deal with it was to do drugs. You know, I started doing a lot of cocaine. I did ecstasy, mushrooms, acid. It didn't help, you know. At the time, it made me feel a little better, but it only set it up so that things ended up getting a lot worse down the road. After me and her split up, I wanted to leave the city to get away, and I needed some space, and I ended up moving to Denver. My biological father lived there at the time, so I wanted to get to know him and meet him, and this was a good opportunity to do that. I started working at a restaurant called Casa Bonita. It's one of the biggest restaurants in the world, from what I was told. It's got hundreds of tables, lots of servers, and I met a lot of cool people there. And we're making $150, $200 cash every day as a server, and you get to meet a lot of people. So after work, we all would hang out and go drink and do drugs, and we did that pretty much every other day. And fast forward a couple years down the road, and by this time things are starting are pretty much out of hand. You know, the drugs aren't fun anymore. Now I'm just doing them to get messed up. There's a saying, it was fun, and then it was fun with problems, and then it was just problems. It wasn't fun anymore towards the end. Because I was in the Army Reserves, I put in to go back to school to become a dental lab technician. They sent me back to school. So I left Denver for a while. I went to Wichita Falls, Texas for 6 months. I went through the dental lab school there. I graduated, top of my class, got an apprenticeship award, best hands award in my class. After that school, I went back home to Texas, to El Paso for a while. When I went back home, I met up with friends from school, and they were already doing heavier stuff with drugs.
From high school, friends
from high school. Yeah, from high school. They were already doing heavier stuff with drugs, and I came back a different person. You know, those 2.5 years that I was in Denver, things changed a lot for me. I changed a lot. I became a lot more angry and a lot more aggressive, and going from a place that's predominantly Hispanic to a place in the middle of the country, you are no longer in a place where you're like everyone else. Like, I felt out of place, and I was treated like I was not from there a lot of times. That was hard to deal with, you know, and I had never really dealt with what had happened before. So everything just started getting worse and worse. So when I went back, like, I came back angry, and I came back very combative with a chip on my shoulder. While I was in Denver, I applied to go to college. I went to Metro State, or Metro Community College, which is downtown Denver. And I went to one class. I remember I went to one class. The teacher asked everyone what their name was and what their major was. And when they got to me, I said my name, and then I said my major was dentistry, because I had wanted to do something else in the dental field, because that's what I did in the Army. But dentistry is not a major. Maybe it's biology or something. I don't know, I didn't think about it. A couple of people in the class laughed. And I remember it was like a last straw for that city. I was like,
I'm done.
They just I was just such in a sensitive place, you know. I was just like, I didn't need it at that time. And for being in college, I was like, oh, I thought we were out of high school. Like, this was like high school stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and I remember going home that night, and I just called, and I dropped out my classes. I never went back. And so when I got back to Texas, like, my ideas of college were gone. My attitude had changed to a kind of don't care attitude. And my friends were already in drugs, so then I started doing stuff with them. Things escalated even more from then on.
How?
I knew they used to move drugs over the U.S.-Mexico border. I started going with them, and we would move drugs from Mexico into the U.S. over the border with 150 pounds of marijuana in the gas tank and tires. Things escalated pretty quickly.
Were you fully realizing the danger, also like the other circumstances that comes with this business?
No, I think it was a combination of things. At the time, I don't think I was really in a place to appreciate how dangerous things were. At the same time, I didn't really care too much. So those two things working together, just kind of, you get this attitude that it's like, whatever, I don't care. If something bad's gonna happen, then I chose to do this, and it's gonna happen. I think back now, and it's kind of crazy to think like that, you know? Mm-hmm. So I knew it, but I kind of didn't really appreciate it like I do now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely when you're down there, you know, you're sitting in a car with cartel members, and you think you're, you know, untouchable, but you don't think that at any time a car from another cartel can drive up and shoot everybody in the car. You're not untouchable at all. You're actually very, very vulnerable and a very, very dangerous place. but it makes you feel invincible. You know, we used to go down there and drive around with these guys, and we were in like a 4-car crew one time, and the police pulled us over in Mexico, and the guy in the front car got off, went and talked to them, and then we just left. Nothing happens. We would park on the sidewalks. We would go to the clubs for free. It's just what it was, you know.
You were the gangsters.
The gangster, the real cartel. And I wasn't a part of the cartels, but I knew people that knew the cartels, and
just the affiliation.
Affiliation, yeah. I was around them. There was times where I was told, don't say anything unless somebody talks to you. Don't say anything stupid, you know. Don't, if you need to say anything to anyone, you talk to him. And it's not a game. It's not, they're not playing around. Yes. It's not like the movies. It's like the movies, but it's not like the movie. It's not a movie. It's not a game. People do die, and you would hear people. We were sitting in a car once, and we were in the back, and the two dudes in the front, the cartels, they're talking about how, you know, the week before they killed the guy and they hung him up and they cut his whatever off and they stuck it in his mouth. That's not a joke. That's not. You know, when you hear stuff like that, you know that it's not, they're not playing around. They're not saying that to kid around. And you knew it was true because you would hear all this stuff in the news all the time. And now you're there, you're sitting with those guys. And they treat you very nice. They treat you like, you know, they give you everything you ask for. They'll give it to you. They're not, you meet them, they're not the monsters you hear of, but they are the monsters you hear of. You know what I mean? So you won't ever see that side until you know, it's too late usually.
So you said, you know, back at the time, you are driving or you're sitting in the car which has 150 pounds of marijuana in gas tank. How easy it was to smuggle this amount through the border back then?
It was fairly easy. People did care about it, but I mean, it's still coming across now. Maybe it's a little harder now, or maybe it was a little easier then. But the only hard part was keeping your cool. You know, keeping your composure when you drive up to the border patrol agent and they ask you your name and where you're coming from. You know, part of your heart, you know, is beating so hard, and you need to act like you're just coming from your, you know, uncle's house or whatever, like nothing's going on. Because if they get any sense, they're gonna pull you over and they're gonna search the car. So, you know, the problem isn't driving over. You just drive over. The problem is, you know, keeping your cool, keeping your composure. I was very against drugs when I was in high school.
It's crazy.
I didn't smoke weed till I was 17. You know, I didn't drink till I was 18, 19. I just didn't. I didn't grow up like that. And then all of a sudden I was doing this, and it's crazy how, you know, what you can do if you really put your mind to it, you know.
And also like what you can do if you hang out with people who you hang out with, right?
Yeah, the influence
of others
is very, very heavy. And, you know, now I don't talk to anybody that I knew from when I was young. Nobody from back home.
Good choice.
And yeah, and you know,
good choice.
I mean, I still know them. I still see them on Facebook and stuff like that, but I don't talk to anybody anymore. It's a different
life.
You're different time of my life.
You are not part of it. You know, it's past you. I'm sure like each of us has some upside downs. You know, people, they need to make money, so that's why they do sometimes bad decisions, you know.
Yeah, making $2,500 in a couple hours is not bad. If you do that
bad for them,
three times in 1 week, that's $6,000 a week.
Because how else they would make that money, right?
Yeah.
So that's why for them to recruit someone who's gonna drive.
And that's why corruption and things are it's so easy over there, because things are so poor that people are so hungry to make money that it's easy for people to get taken advantage of, or to take opportunities that you probably wouldn't take any other way. You know, if you're poor and you don't have nothing to eat and someone tells you, hey, can you do this and I'll give you $500, you probably won't think about the consequences too much because you want that money, you know. And that's how things escalated so fast over there, you know. And there's so many factors involved, but that, you know, people being poor is one of the biggest ones, yeah.
Can you tell me more about the check on the actual border?
You used to just be able to get to the border, and they would just ask you if you were American citizen. You just said American citizen. If they had any doubts, then they would kind of ask you a few questions. Where were you born? What school did you go to? You know, where do you live? Things like that. If somebody is not American, they'll probably stumble out some of that stuff, or they won't sound authentic, you know, and the Border Patrol will pick up on that pretty quick. But if you're American, you can just, you know, oh, I live here, and they'll just, yeah, go ahead. It wasn't such a big deal. It was actually pretty easy, and it was.
So you just said, I'm American
citizen.
And that's it. And continue driving.
I continue
You don't
driving.
show them passport, anything.
No, nothing. You're just American citizen.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely talk about different times.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's.
It seems we talk about different century. We actually talk about different century, but like, also, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's insane. That is
Yeah.
insane. So then you just say like, okay, I'm a US citizen. Then you keep driving.
Yeah, American citizen. Where are you coming from? During the times we were crossing, we would go on the weekends, because on the weekends in El Paso, everybody would go to Juarez to drink and party. Because in Mexico, you got to be 18 to drink. So all the college kids, a lot of high school kids would go down to Mexico, party, get drunk, and then drive back over. And the Border Patrol didn't care if you were drunk driving. That's just, they would just let you, you know, there was too many people to arrest, basically. Like they'd be arresting the whole half of the city.
Crazy.
So everybody would go over there and party and then come back. So we would go on the weekends, go party, meet up with the dudes from the cartels. They'd have cars ready. You'd pick a car. Then you would go back and finish partying. At the end of the night, when the bars were closing down, then they would show up with the car you picked, and then they would give you the keys, and then you would just come over with all the other cars coming over at the same time, and everyone's drunk, everyone's driving over. They can't tell anybody apart from anyone else, because we're all the same age and we're all drunk. You know what I mean? And people acting crazy is kind of normal when everyone's drunk. People would be getting fights at the border all the time. This doesn't mean that they have drugs on them. They're just drunk and being idiots. So sometimes there's people be fighting, and that actually helps you out, because they're looking at them over there, and you're just like, American, oh, cool. And then you just go through, and you got 100 pounds of weed in the gas tank, you know. So it was pretty easy if you did it the right way. It was actually not a big deal. And you know, I only did it a few times. I know people that did it, you know, way more times, and I knew people that is what they did. And
For
I know
living.
people, yeah, for a living, and they're not around anymore. So you could say I dabbled in it more than your usual person, more than the normal person, right? The normal person wouldn't do that, but that also wasn't what I did, you know. And I knew enough to
pull out.
And I knew that, you know, eventually this isn't forever, you know. Even though I was in the middle of it, I was always trying to be smart about it. I knew what to do, what not to do. I always walked right up to the line, but I never crossed that line. And I was always very careful not to, because there's certain lines in life that you cross and you can't come back from.
Yes.
You just can't. And so I always knew where that line was, and I came up to it. But I was always very careful not to cross that line, because I really wasn't that type of person. I was doing that, but that's not the way I grew up, and that's not what I wanted. That's not how I saw my life turning out.
Just simply saying it's not right, you know, like, you know, inside of you that it's not right.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want to do or want to see anybody doing, because you know it ruins people's life, and like it just brings violence and problems, and it's not just the way to live.
Yeah.
You know, and they are only using those people like you, because they will do, as you said, they will do anything for the money, because they are poor, and recruit them is just like easy. And if you are not gonna do it, someone else is gonna do it. There's already 20 more people who are waiting for your spot, you know, to get replaced.
Yeah.
So they don't care about you. You are just the number. That's why, you know, we are here trying to show you that there is nothing that is worth of glorifying this, you know, that it's just bad. It's like those people are making bad decisions.
And I'm not making an excuse. I still did some of that stuff, and I knew I was wrong, you know, but I knew that it's not what I wanted to do, and I did want to change my life. You know.
Yeah.
One of those days we were coming over. We actually got set up by the cartels, and we were the fall guys. So they told the border patrol that our car had pounds in it. We got pulled over.
Who told them?
The cartels.
How they come to they come knock on the window and say like this car or
no, it's corruption. They have informants.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they have informants. They know people. They know people. They know people that work for the border patrol. So they just make a phone call. Hey, this guy, and they have it set up, where we're gonna give you guys a couple of cars, and with the understanding that some of those cars are gonna get through, and we were one of those cars that got pulled over and searched. We got arrested. At the same time, there was another car with like kilos of cocaine that went through right behind us, and we were basically pointed out to take the attention off of the other cars. I was in jail for a few weeks. I bonded out, and the guy that I was doing this with, he already had other cases pending. He was already looking at prison. So he ended up taking responsibility for everything, and they dropped the charges on me. I ended up leaving El Paso not long after that, and I moved back to Denver. But I kept working with people in Denver, It was kind of the same story. We were just getting stuff from Texas and selling stuff. And I ended up getting busted in Denver with cocaine, with weed and cocaine this time. And the cocaine wasn't supposed to be in the package this time. So they had used me that time. I was told that it was just marijuana, but they had actually put something else in it. And when I got arrested, I was looking at 32 years in the beginning. And they were trying to scare me into taking a deal. And they wanted names, and they wanted to know how all of this worked. And, they said, we know you're deep in this, and we just want to know how everything works, basically. And this thing is so deep that I wasn't really anything special in that world. Mm-hmm. I was just moving stuff here and there. I mean, for the normal person, yeah, I was. But in that world, I was just a dude, but they were asking how...
You're like the UPS driver, pretty much.
Yeah, and they want to know how the inner workings of UPS works. Like, I don't know how that works. I'm just driving this thing. I was in jail for 3 months that time. I was going back and forth to court. They were offering me 32 years. I said no, 26, 24, 18, 16, 12 years, 8 years. And I kept saying no. And they offered me a deal of 4 years prison. With the 4-year cap, that means I couldn't do any more than 4 years. And then they made me eligible for probation, which I ended up taking at that time. So then I was sentenced to 3 years at prison, and the judge suspended that with the condition that I did 3 years probation, and that I finished that. And if I got in trouble again in those 3 years, then I would do 3 years prison.
Mm-hmm. And that made you to move out of Denver again and like move to LA, right?
Yeah, when I caught that, I started figuring, like, this had already been going on for years, and in and out of jail, it's, and I needed something different. I needed to really make a change. So then I knew I had to find something that could fill my time, because part of the reason why you get in trouble, or people get in trouble, is they have too much time on their hands, and they just do bad things. So I wanted something to fill up my time so that I didn't have so much free time. So that I went to look for a jiu-jitsu academy. So I had heard about it. I always wanted to try it, and that's how I got involved in jiu-jitsu. So I was on probation for 3 years. While I was on probation, I couldn't leave Denver, and as soon as I finished my probation, I left Denver, and I moved to Las Vegas for about a year. I always wanted to live in Vegas. I kind of partied for about 9 months. And then while I was there, I trained at a couple of places, but it wasn't the same as the original school I started with. And then after Vegas, I went back home to Texas for about 9 months. And then there was a school in LA that I wanted to train at. And then I decided to move to LA to train there full time. And that's the main and only reason why I moved to LA, is to train.
Pretty
at
good
this
reason
academy.
as well.
That was the main thing of why I started doing jiu-jitsu. I wanted something positive, and jiu-jitsu offers a positive way of life, a different way of life, not just training, but a way of life in general. And I wanted to change everything about my life, and so I went to LA to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I must say that your story, it's incredible. And you guys, this is just the short, really introduction about this. With like just few sentences, can you like mention your jail experience, how it went, like how did you feel over there?
So jail is pretty bad, and it's pretty different depending on where you go. When I was in jail in Texas, it's predominantly Hispanic, and it's ran by the gangs in Texas. And when you walk in, you're told what the rules are. You're told where to sit. You're told when your cleaning time is and what you're going to be cleaning. And while people are during chow time, people are eating. No one's allowed to use the restroom. You have to wear shoes and socks. You have to wear a shirt. You have to be respectful. And these are rules by the gangs, not by the jailers. This is by the gangs. And if you don't follow the rules, you suffer consequences. When I was in jail in Denver, it was a lot more relaxed in that sense, but it was a lot more it was a lot more mixed. There's a lot more white people, a lot more black people, a lot more Mexicans, Salvadorians, Guatemala, like people from everywhere. And you have to be careful in a different way, because there aren't rules like in Texas. Then people tend to act crazy because there's not a check on anybody. Everyone's it's a free-for-all sort of, in a way. Maybe in the prison systems it's a little different, but in jail it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into an altercation with the guy that was threatening some of the Mexican and Salvadorians guys. At the time, I didn't really care too much, and they weren't like that. They were in trouble, but they weren't doing what I was doing, and I had a different attitude, so I confronted this guy. I ended up getting my jaw broken. That's just what it was. I didn't care. That I knew that the consequences in there.
Crazy.
And
Crazy.
It was either him or me, and it was me. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. In jail, you gotta be careful, because I could have not woke up, and that's just the way it is. But I did. I ended up going to the infirmary. They sent me to the hospital. They wired my jaw shut. I couldn't open my mouth for six weeks, and I was in the infirmary cell with one other person, and one cell, me and him, 23 hours a day for 6 weeks. And then after that, they removed the wires, and they put me back in population. I was actually gonna end up doing the 4 years, and then not too long after that, they bonded me out, and then I was able to fight my case from the outside, and I was able to get the probation. But there was a point where I wasn't sure if I was gonna get out, and
how did you feel about it? Like,
I was angry because the people that
angry?
the people that I was working with, first of all, it was supposed to be only marijuana. Mm-hmm. So they had already lied to me. Mm-hmm. And beforehand, we had agreed if anything happened and they were going to bond me out, they were going to take care of all that. So when I got busted, first of all, some of that stuff wasn't supposed to be in there, so I was already angry. And when they were offering me 32, 26, 24 years, I'm like, you guys need to get me out of here, and you need to get me a lawyer. And they weren't doing it. And so I was I was angry, you know, and last time I talked to him on the phone, I made it very clear, you know, I told him, you know what, that's fine, don't bond me out. I'm going to do the time. But when I get out, I'm going to go talk to somebody. And they bonded me out in a week. So this was crazy times. I was a different person.
Yeah.
I was not playing around at the time, just like they weren't playing around. 24 years in prison is not a joke.
You will never get out.
And you know, if they didn't care, then if I was going to lose my life, then it was going to be, once I got out, because I was going to get out. I didn't kill anybody. I was going to get out. And when I got out, then it was going to be a different story. And they knew that. So they ended up, and they knew they were wrong too, right? So then they ended up bonding me out, and I ended up fighting the case. And
wow.
And
well, bro, what a story. But I'm so glad that you are alive, that you are here, because that means you're doing good. I'm so proud of you. I know you for quite a time, and I know you're doing good. You're running your own business, doing good stuff, and you are a good citizen. So
yeah, it feels weird
I
even
mean,
talking about it now, because it's such a long time ago, and it's
long time ago, but it was still you know.
Yeah,
so
it was me, and it just.
I'm glad that you see the change as well, you know.
Yeah, no, it's.
So guys, don't do drugs, do sports
Don't
instead.
do drugs, do
Don't do
sports.
drugs, don't do anything
If you
stupid.
have a problem, talk to somebody about it. Share it with people. Look for help.
Exactly.
There's people there to help. Always, there's always someone there.
There's always someone
that you can talk to, and there's a lot of places you can go to.
Yeah.
Things can always get worse, you know.
Always be thankful for what you have, because in Europe, some of the stories that I hear, I cannot really imagine taking place in Europe, especially in Czech Republic. It's a very safe environment, very nice place to live. Even when you guys complain about some stupid things, it's not that serious as you think it is at that moment. And trust me, I know people here that go through like very hard times, and I don't know anybody in my own country, in Czech Republic or Slovakia, who would go through anything similar. So be always thankful for what you have. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing this story and for being willing to talk openly about everything. I'm sure that it's gonna help some people. Thank you very much. That's it for today, and we're gonna see you next time. Bye.